Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm Iain.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to talk about one of my favourite movies of all time. And that is the 1987 comedy from director John Hughes, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, starring Steve Martin and John Candy. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Steve Martin's character, Neil Page, who is rushing to get home for Thanksgiving with his family. He happens to come across John Candy's character, Dale Griffith, and inadvertently ends up getting the worst luck in his life. Neil's plane is cancelled, he has to find alternative routes home, and along the way he obviously builds up this friendship with Dale. But Dale is one of the most awkward people to travel with.
First you delay me, then you bump me. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Is this a coincidence or what? Have a seat.
This is my introduction into Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
This is one of those American sort of celebrations that we don't have over here. So watching this movie in my childhood, it was kind of, I didn't get it. It kind of felt like an early Christmas of some kind. But that was my introduction into Thanksgiving. And sort of every time just before the Christmas season, I feel the need to rewatch this film every single year. It's like the seasonal classic. There's no other film for me that captures the spirit of what this celebration is all about. And watching this one man having this desperate struggle to get home, to have dinner with his family, and all of the misery and chaos that happens to him is just unprecedented. Because when you see him in the opening sequence sat in his office and he's already late for his plane, and I'm like, whoa, you've got no idea how quickly that shit is going to go flying downhill into that fan.
For me, I remember the first time I watched this, I had already gotten through a few of the National Lampoons. So I had a feeling that this was going to be kind of the same. You know, it's set around the holidays. There's going to be all these funny moments that he's going to get into, and it's just going to be one calamity after another, disaster sequence after another. But it's more than that. This film for me is the ultimate road trip movie. You know, you've got Steve Martin, absolutely class actor, started Man with the Two Brains, A Parenthood, The Three Amigos, tag teaming him up with John Candy, Mr. Uncle Buck, class star from Blues Brothers, fucking Canadian bacon. I didn't want to bring it up, but I will. And the two of them, I could just watch for hours. I don't care. Sometimes I don't care what's going on in the background. It's just the way they interact with each other.
How about a nice hot dog and a beer?
No thanks.
Just a hot dog then.
I'm kind of picky about what I eat.
Some coffee.
No.
Milk?
No.
Soda?
No.
Some tea?
No.
Lifesavers?
No.
Slurpee?
Sir, please.
You know, Steve Martin comes across as Neil Page, just wound up, stressed to the eyeballs, businessman. You know, he's made a promise to his family. He's not going to break it, but obviously he knows that he can't control the weather. He can't control the roads. He can't control the companies. And then on the other side, you've got John Candy, Dale Griffith, who's just this bubbly, larger-than-life fucking cloud of happiness.
You know, the finest line a man will walk is between success at work and success at home. I got a motto. Like your work, love your wife. Well, I'll remember that.
Even though they shouldn't mix, once they start to really, combo up and journey together, my heart just melts for this film.
And it's really easy to see why, because these two characters are polar opposites. You watch Neil Page and he's kind of trying to be polite about the fact that he's being considerably inconvenienced at every turn. And this guy is just the personification of the devil for him. He really is. But there's also some other interesting sort of side characters that turn up throughout the movie that kind of helps these two get from A to B to C and so on.
Yeah.
And right from the get-go, we've got a small cameo appearance from one of my other favourite actors, Kevin Bacon, who doesn't actually have any lines of dialogue in this film, but he just sets up that opening sequence when they're trying to get a cab in New York rush hour just before Thanksgiving. There's also a throwback to other Kevin Bacon film within this film where the wife's at home watching a movie on TV, and that's another John Hughes movie starring Kevin Bacon that actually hadn't been released at the time this film had come out.
See, that's what I love about, another thing I love about this film. I mean, John Hughes, when people say that name, unless you were raised in the 80s, unless you've actually delved into his film, he's not a top name director.
He immediately invokes family movie.
Yeah.
Especially when you think of something like Home Alone.
Yeah, he has done some classics. He did Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He did The Breakfast Club, Home Alone, Uncle Buck, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles. And if you were younger and watched those films got you through a lot of the tough times through your teenage years just by making you smile and realise that, you know, John Hughes can convey what normal people go through. And like we said, the opening sequence of this film with Steve Martin just really wanting to get a taxi and his mate's like, "You'll never make the 6 o'clock.
Have a good holiday. I'll see you in Chicago, John.
You'll never make the 6.
We get a stunning array of events that just unfold, and at every single turn, you just feel sympathy for Neil Page's character because he is so desperate to get home, and yet all these things keep happening to him. And when they get to the hotel, and there's obviously just one room left, it instantly sets itself up. When the two characters are just looking around and the camera pans across the room, you see the single bed and it passes, and then it cuts back to that single bed. And Dale's like, "Want to have a shower?"
You want to take a shower?
No.
No, I meant if you want to go first or not. Oh, you thought I...
No, go ahead.
Oh, I would...
Go
What do you
ahead.
think I am?
Yeah, no.
God, no. Gee, that's funny. That's funny.
It's like, and it really does capture that. What if you were stuck traveling with a complete stranger and had to share a room with a guy you'd only met like a few hours ago? And then, of course, we get the infamous shower scene where he pulls out his pants out of the sink when he wants to brush his teeth. And on top of that, we get, for me, which is one of the most iconic moments in the film, is when they wake up together and they're snuggled up together and they think that they're each other's wives. Where's your other hand? It's between two pillows.
Why are you holding my hand? Where's your other hand? Between two pillows. Those aren't pillows.
Did you see the game the other day? Excellent game. Excellent game. Manly.
See that Bears game last week? Yeah, hell of a game. Hell of a game. Bears got a great team this year. They're going to go all the way. Oh, yeah.
It's just every sequence, from the moment these two actors get together, every sequence is a gem. I mean, like we said, when they're in the hotel and you see that single double bed, you're just like, this is going to get awkward. You know, you've got Dale sat on the bed, putting in money and letting it vibrate while he's smoking a fag, relaxing. Where on the other side, you've got Neil in the bathroom, and the bathroom has been fucking destroyed by Dell. He's got like one hand towel to wipe himself down after a shower. And then what makes me laugh is when he gets into bed, he's all pissed off, and Dell's trying to get himself sorted. He's snorting through his nose, and he's got his pillow. And then you realise that Neil tells you that Dell had left some beer on the bed, and they've exploded and left a puddle patch on his side of the bed.
Sorry.
Which, of course, all of these events just build up to the point where Neil is just like, he's had enough. He's like, fuck it, I don't need this. I'm a businessman. I'm an advertising agent. I don't need to put up with this shit. And he gets up to leave.
God, you're a tight ass.
How'd you like a mouthful of teeth?
Oh, and hostile, too. Nice personality combination. Hostile and intolerant. That's borderline criminal.
And that is when the two of them have their first human sort of confrontation with each other.
Yeah.
Where they really express themselves to each other in a very hurtful way.
You're no saint. You got a free cab, you got a free room, and someone who'll listen to your boring stories. I mean, didn't you notice on the plane when you started talking, eventually I started reading the vomit bag? Didn't that give you some sort of clue, like, hey, maybe this guy's not enjoying it? You know, everything is not an anecdote. You have to discriminate.
If you love John Candy, you see his hurt.
Yeah.
And you can see how quickly he sort of pulls back into himself. But he always has this way of just going, you know what, my life is shit, you know. Everything is falling apart around me. I'm upsetting all these people, but my friends love me.
Yeah.
My wife loves me.
I like me. My wife likes me. My customers like me. Because I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
And it just melts Steve Martin on the spot.
Yeah.
He just puts his hat back down and he's like, you're right, I'm an asshole. I've said some horrible things. We're complete strangers, there's no need for this, but we'll try and carry on. And it's just that moment sort of gets repeated throughout the rest of the film, because they'll have an incident where they want to rip each other's throats out again, and then they'll laugh about it and move on.
It just, I mean, for me, this film just cements how brilliant Steve Martin and John Candy are. I mean, you would just consider them two stage comedians who are good at telling jokes, but sticking them in front of a camera and giving them two characters that they have to develop and bring to life, that argument cements it for me. You know, the way Steve Martin reacts, I can understand the way he'd react. I'd probably react in the same situation, but balance that with John Candy standing there just taking hit after hit after hit, and the camera's on John Candy, and I'm like, I'm gonna cry. I'm fucking gonna cry. Hold it together. He's gonna apologise in a minute. It's all gonna be fine. The film's gonna carry on. And
I just like the bit that after he said all those things and he gets back into the bed, and then he's looking over to see if Steve Martin's gonna come back or not. He's like, it's just so funny.
I sometimes wonder what makes this film so special. Is it John Hughes and just the way that he makes films work? I mean, I've seen Pretty in Pink, I've seen 16 Candles, I've seen The Breakfast Club. Those are absolutely brilliant John Hughes movies. They make emotions come out of me that I've tried to suppress for years. Planes, Trains and Automobiles, though, there's something more with Steve Martin and John Candy. I love both of them, and this whole combo of all three of them coming together. You know, like you said, some people sit there and go, I've never seen that film, and I just want to fucking smack them. I'm just like, you're the problem with the world. If you've never seen this film, fucking get a copy of it, sit down and fucking watch it, and if you're not smiling by the end, you're fucking dead inside.
If you're not crying or smiling by the end of this film, you really are dead inside, because it does have just one of the most beautiful payoffs in recent memory still. I'm not going to spoil the ending at all for those of you that still haven't seen it, but for those that have, you know exactly what we mean.
I can't express anymore just how I just love every sequence. I mean, after the hotel sequence, you've got Dale Griffith trying to sell shower curtain rings.
This is Czechoslovakian ivory. That's $5. Great. This is your Walter Cronkite moon ring. Thank you. They are filled with helium, so they're very light. Thank you.
To women as earrings, and the way John Candy just rambles on these different descriptive titles of curtain rings, I'd fucking buy them.
You could pass for 18 or 19.
You know, you then obviously you follow Neil and his problems with renting a car. That sequence is absolutely amazing. He walks all the way into this car park, realizes his car's missing. He's then got to walk miles all the way back to the rental place. You've got this 80s music playing and just watching Steve Martin walk. And then there's a minute long, I shit you not, a minute long sequence where Steve Martin says fuck 18 times.
And I really don't care for the way your company left me in the middle of fucking nowhere with fucking keys to a fucking car that isn't fucking there. And I really didn't care to fucking walk down a fucking highway and across a fucking runway to get back here to have you smile at my fucking face. I want a fucking car right fucking now.
And I just applaud that.
That there, for me, was always the most memorable scene in the film.
Oh, boy.
Oh boy, what?
You're fast.
Every scene is brilliant. It's really difficult to choose a favourite one moment in this film. So I'm perhaps going to choose my favourite John Candy moment.
Yeah.
And that is where they've been robbed. The car has been set on fire. They are shit out of luck. It's freezing cold, and they're trying to check into a hotel. And Steve Martin's like, well, I don't have all of the money because all my credit cards are like small burnt chips. So he manages to pay some with cash, and then he pays off the rest with his Rolex watch. And then the guy's like, yeah, in you go. And then John Candy and Steve Martin, they've fallen out again at this point. And John Candy's like, well, no, I don't have the money, but I've got $2 and a Casio.
And a Casio.
The way he just rolls it down his Parker jacket like a model. It's just in his face. He's just like, yeah, that'll get me the room. But then after that little comedic gem, we get the heartwarming scene where he's sat outside in the car by himself.
Yeah.
And he's talking to his wife, and you're just like, oh, yeah, you are a blabbermouth. Yeah, you do, accidentally upset people around you, but you've got one of the biggest, warmest hearts on any person from any film right there.
Yeah.
And it's just, and that's what the film does so well. So that's my favourite John Candy scene. My favourite Steve Martin scene is probably going to be the scene where he does give Del that grief in the first hotel room, where he does just lay into him, and then when you see him melt and sort of start to understand of how much of an asshole he is, I think that's quite a poignant scene as well.
Honey, I'd like you to meet Del Griffith. He's got some amusing anecdotes for you. Oh, and here's a gun so you can blow your brains out. You'll thank me for it.
I tried to do a tally chart when I was doing notes for this film of who was funnier for me in this film, and Steve Martin has a lot more brilliant scenes than John Candy. John Candy is fucking funny, but Steve Martin's just acting in some of the scenes where he's wiping his face with the pants in the bathroom, where he's brushing his teeth with the water with the socks in it. Obviously the sequence where they're driving between the trucks and he looks at Del and Del's the devil and the fucking skeletons are absolutely brilliant. But I mean, if I had to pick one scene for both of them, with John Candy, I would have to pick the moment on the plane where he takes his shoes and socks off, and you can see that Neil is just squashed next to him, and he's just swinging the sock around, going, "Oh God, that's good." That is just brilliant.
Oh, that feels better.
Another brilliant sequence, tiny little bit as well, is where he first meets Dell, and Dell looks with the shocked face, and then they're in the airport, and you have that quick shot of Dell sat behind the door. As a memory, I fucking love that sequence as well. And
so I love the fact that he's, again, it's sort of almost like a reference to Canadian Bacon, where he's reading, and it's obviously a nod to the fact that once again he is a Canadian actor playing an American.
Yeah. And if I had to pick a brilliant Steve Martin sequence, it would have to be after he has insulted the woman at the car rental place, and he's walked out. He starts to insult a taxi cabbie, and the cabbie punches him, and he falls in front of Dale's car, and Dale almost runs him over. And Dale is trying to calm the cabbie down, and he says to him, "Look, I'll take it, put his luggage in the car, you put Neil in the car." And so the guy's like, "Yep, I will." And he grabs Neil by the balls and lifts him up and puts him in the car. And then for the next sequence, Neil is talking with a squeaky voice, and it's just absolutely priceless.
He's got those pursed lips, and his eyes are still sparkling afterwards.
Lucky thing for you that cop passed by when he did. Otherwise, you'd be lifting up your schnuts to tie your shoes. I'm sorry. That's terrible. Do you have any idea how glad I am I didn't kill you?
Do you have any idea how glad I'd be if you had?
I thoroughly recommend Planes, Trains and Automobiles. It's a film you can watch every year, seasonally. It just is perfect. It is, for me, one of the ultimate family feel-good movies because everything works out. Of course, it's the road to the working of it out. Just the same with any John Hughes movie. It's ultimately you're gonna feel the lows and you're gonna feel the highs. You're gonna at points hate both the characters and love both of the characters. If it's the first time you're watching it, you're gonna have massive revelations towards the end of the movie, and it will melt your heart. I cannot recommend this film enough. It is absolutely funny still after all these years.
Yeah.
Are we there yet?
No, little way to go yet. Beautiful country, though, isn't it?
What do you think the temperature is?
1.
Just like Gary, I highly recommend this film. If you're watching this review and you have never seen Planes, Trains and Automobiles, fucking turn this off, get a copy of it, sit down, some popcorn, turn your phone off, just sit back and just take a road trip with Steve Martin and John Candy. Do it.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.